Hi, Mike. My name is Keith Shaw, Chair of the Finance Committee, and I'll call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. We expect another board member to be here shortly, but in lieu of your time and our time, I'm going to start the meeting on time. So again, calling the meeting to order, Thursday, January 16th, 2025. And first thing on the agenda, we're going to go through this quite quick, is the monthly financial reports presented by Mr. Mishler. Ken, do you have any items on that financial report or vouchers that of notoriety?
I just want to point out that in the financial statements, the very first page, if you look at the third column, it's got Special Education Fund 27. You see a negative $4,991,000. And I said 4,000. $4,991,000. And that's normal. What happens, special ed, we start getting special ed dollars coming in. So the district supports a special ed program partially anyway, but the others will be picked up with some of the programs and paying out claims. So what was negative by about $5 million will quickly turn to a positive or offset it. So we'll make a journal entry, take some money out of Fund 10 to pay for part of 27 that'll occur in January.
And when does that reimbursement usually come?
So in essence, reimbursements from the state, we got handicap aid, not Title I. Basically, federal, it's not handicap aid, it's EEA or whatever that is. What's the?
IDEA.
IDEA, and that
Special
big dollars
ed,
in
yeah.
special ed. Handicap aid will come from now on as claims come through.
Okay.
So until actually it'll go into the next year, we'll receive them as we put the claims through. When the year is done, we'll receive money in July for those two for this year.
Any other thing that you wanted us to point out? Tony, any questions?
Yeah, I guess anything out of the ordinary besides what you just brought up?
Not really. I don't know what to explain to you about the financial statements, but overall they're very comparable to previous years.
Okay. Hearing that, then I need a motion to approve the monthly finances for December 2024. I need a motion.
So moved.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now we're on to the third point on the agenda, Cadence Consultant Service Proposal. This is an informative discussion action with Mr. Mike Hacker. Again, my name is Keith Shaw, board member Tony. And I think you have the rest.
Yeah.
So we'll turn this over to Mike and to Mr. Tennis.
Yeah, and thanks for entertaining us, and Mike, thanks for being able to schedule us and join us virtually for this, and really appreciate you being here. I sent a memo to the board via this committee, basically outlining a recommendation that Mr. Schwartz and I have in regards to entering a service agreement with Cadence Consulting, which is Mr. Hacker's company that essentially provides owner's rep services. So in the memo, you'll see outlined, in addition to the experience that Mr. Hacker has facilitating, he's actually renowned in the state for facilitating community conversations about long-range facilities planning, providing referendum support, as well as project management support. We looked at 4 different companies or entities, including CISA 10, Nexus, Hoffman Construction, as well as Cadence. And our executive team was part of all of those interviews that we essentially conducted and listened to presentations. Following our work on that, it was essentially unanimous that we felt the best fit for our district was Mr. Hacker. So at that time, we scheduled a meeting with Mr. Hacker to come to our district office where Mr. Schwartz and I met with him along with Mr. Abel, the president of the school board, for a short presentation on things. Following that, we were able to have him answer the remaining questions that we had from our first round of interviews and things. Again, really feeling strongly that we would recommend him. So we asked Mr. Hacker to draw up a service agreement that we could bring to this committee and to the board to enter into. I think what you'll find in that document is our ability to use Mr. Hacker as needed with a per hour rate for his services. And what he's here to do tonight is to talk a little bit about what those services would be and how we would be able to utilize him to help us out with several aspects of where we're headed next. So I'll further ado, Mr. Hacker, I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent. Well, first, thank you. And Lee and team, thank you for the opportunity to join virtually for this and as schedules aligned here. So looking forward to this conversation for a couple weeks now. And my hope here is just to provide a little bit more background on myself and then answer any questions that the group might have. I think Lee, I really appreciate your introduction and the kind words. I think the role of an owner's rep really is to provide the services and meet the client where they are when they are. And so from my seat, by trade and training, I'm a licensed architect by background. Have worked 20 plus years in Wisconsin K-12, a lot of that as an architect, and then most recently transitioning into this owner's rep capacity by starting Cadence Consulting. And so in that, really, the services that an owner's rep provides really align with where they're at in their process and kind of what support might be needed. And so for some clients, as Lee had noted, it's very much a exercise of supporting the process to define the needs in the district, to validate and kind of develop solutions to those needs, and then supporting the implementation of how best to meet and solve those. And so sometimes, like we've discussed, it's a citizens committee, and it's a process where our role is to help facilitate that group's work. And we have a lot of tools and resources and things that we can leverage as a part of that. But in that, from my seat, there is no one size fits all, right? So we have a bunch of resources and we're going to craft those around a solution or a process that works best for Manitowoc. And so it'll take some time for us to work through those and figure out how best to align that. But those are all at our disposal. And then with that, then as an owner's rep, we would just in dint of kind of how Wisconsin school investment funding works, many projects are referendum bound, right? Just because that's the path to making the investments. That's how school districts obtain the revenue needed for that. And so as a firm, we spend a lot of time supporting clients on the path to referendum, if in fact that's their next step. And then beyond referendum, upon success, would stay on and support them in implementation, hiring, negotiating contracts, writing RFPs, and we can talk about all of those layers as well. So with that said, I know the district has a number of balls up in the air, right? There's dialogue around what a referendum might look like for some of the highest priorities. There's dialogues around both staff and community engagement efforts and how best to gather the feedback from those stakeholders. And am fully capable, lots of experience in all those different areas, and would be positioned to provide service and support of the district on all fronts. And so my hope tonight was really not to go too deep down a path, because I know I've had the opportunity to present firm history and background and experience, but I have been fortunate to work a lot in the Manitowoc County, Kewaunee County, Sheboygan County area. So I know the area very well, both currently in Mishicot and Two Rivers. Also historically, I've worked a lot, and I'd mentioned this to Lee even, at Silver Lake College back when that was an entity in place. Did a lot of work with the sisters and the leadership there, and know the Manitowoc community very, very well. So very excited and eager for the potential of this opportunity. So I'll pause there. I do have some slides that I can present a little more background. I kind of follow the lead of the committee, what you'd like to learn a little bit more about, or what questions you might have.
At this point, Tony, Matt, sorry you missed the introduction, but any questions for Mike at this point? The slides would be interesting to see, but if there's a point in time, would you have questions? Now would be a good time to ask those.
I think I'm good for now. I'd like to see the presentation.
Okay.
And then I might have some.
Okay, why don't you go ahead with the slides then, Mike, and then we'll jump in with questions.
Sounds great. Yeah. So this would be the same slide deck to Lee and the leadership team that we looked at when we first sat down. I wanted just to be sure I was consistent with imagery that we looked at here. I provided a bit of background. So what you see on the right side of these slides is some pages out of a firm intro packet that I provided to the district separately. Cadence, in its name, recognizes the role as an owner's rep, where I believe that from a philosophy standpoint, the most successful processes, the most successful projects maintain the right rhythm throughout the project. Okay, and that's the whole notion of cadence. The icon or the logo is a metronome, right? So you can imagine that arm on that metronome moving, and it's our role to be sure we're maintaining the right pace at any point in the project. And there are times when we certainly need to move more quickly. And then there are times that we know that we can spread some things out, make some decisions, and be strategic. And it's our role just to be sure we're always in sync, we being you as the district and all consultant partners. I had noted that my background as an owner's rep is architectural by professional training, but historically, and my upbringing was all in construction. So Cadence Consulting, although it's rooted in architecture and in providing owner's rep services, is really an outgrowth of multiple generations, multiple decades of Hacker family construction companies. Okay, so all the way back to the 1950s, Hacker Roofing kind of came all the way through. My grandfather started Hacker Insulation, which became Wilshire Roofing. A. Hacker and Sons, that was my grandfather, my dad, and my uncle. And my dad then started Hacker Remodeling. And so there was a little stint in there where the family went down the Grumpy's Pizza path. We were going to be the next Papa John's, but that didn't work out. So we went back into what we knew well as a family, into construction. So and Hacker Remodeling still exists. So if I were to go home even tonight, I'd be put to work with Hacker Remodeling. So really, Cadence is an outgrowth of a deep construction knowledge and history at the roots of who I am and what Cadence is. And I think is a really important frame for Cadence as a firm. Cadence is me, right? So I am Cadence Consulting. I'm the founder. I started Cadence. What has been proposed to the district is my services in support of your project and this process. It is reaching into the experience and the knowledge and the resources, the connections within the industry that I bring. But Cadence is also a handful of other folks as well. And so Stuart Hacker, so still a family company. That's one of my brothers. He's a data analyst and provides support when we start looking at bid results and payment applications. As we're looking at fee comparisons, he provides a key layer of analysis and work there. Amanda Izquierdo is a team member who provides furniture, fixture, and equipment specialty services. So if we get into a project that requires a significant focus on coordinating furniture or equipment, she'll often step in and we'll leverage her expertise as well. And then I also have an intern as a part of the team, and Cullen Boyle is a project intern with Cadence and is I think adding additional layers and depth to the team. So what has been proposed is my services, and I think for a lot of the upfront work that we've talked about initially, that's really who would carry that. But as we got deeper into any specific project, not atypical that you may see some other names plugged in as a part of the team there. As was noted, very fortunate to have lots of great experience. And so this is just a kind of a snapshot. It was strategic here in providing both a depth of owner's rep experience as well as experience as an architect. The key takeaway here is really districts of all shapes and sizes, projects of all shapes and sizes. Been fortunate to work in a number of communities very similar to Manitowoc, right? When we talk about some of the challenges and some of the complexities that make up your community, they're not all that dissimilar from Racine, right? Or even some of the working Green Bay and kind of these industrial cities that are in this position of needing to continue to reinvent and reestablish and respond to who we are today and who we're going to be into the future. And sometimes that takes some heavy discussions and a lot of work. And I know that's what the district's been focused on and is continuing to embark on. And so key takeaway there is, again, districts of all sizes, a number of districts very similar to you, but no project and no district is exactly alike, like I said earlier. So really, we're going to figure out what we need to do to get our process to be successful on your end. And then just quickly, really as an owner's rep, the service support falls into three primary buckets. And so the first one is accountability. So what do we need to do in order to manage the project, to hold partners accountable, to make sure we are holding ourselves accountable, to making sure we're hitting our deadlines and moving at the pace we need to move at. Risk mitigation, right? Anytime you're to embark on a project or a significant investment, you're engaging with community members, there's inherent risk. And that's really a big part of our role is to help you manage that risk. We can't always eliminate it, right? But we're going to do everything we can to be sure we can see around the corners and do our best to know what's out there and have strategies for avoiding it and or managing it if it comes. And some of those are budget risks, some of those are time risks, and certainly, especially with community engagement work, we have a lot of relationship risks that we have to manage, right? Expectations that maybe the school board has or expectations the community has of the school district. And this process really brings those to the surface. And then lastly, when you go through a process like this and consider investments, there's a lot of responsibility that the owner carries in that. Even though you're going to hire talented team members and folks with a lot of expertise, there's still a lot that falls back on the district in terms of what needs to get done. Our role is to support you in managing those responsibilities. And those are really two types of things. Sometimes it is just providing you a depth of experience in managing those, right? Knowing the right questions to ask, knowing the right partners to reach out to, writing RFPs and distributing those within the industry. So sometimes it's expertise. Other times it's just flat out time that you as a district and your leadership has a district to run, has staff to support, has students to support, and to embark on this process and this project. A lot of times it is really just needing another set of hands to help carry this forward and keep it moving. And that's a key part of our role in supporting your responsibilities. In that packet, I provided kind of a smattering of different types of services. Again, no two projects are alike, so happy to go into more depth on these. But I did provide a couple examples just quickly. First, our procurement, right? You're going to have to dialogue about finding partners, hiring expertise. You may eventually need to hire an architect or a contractor. We may need to go through a process to get surveys, whatever that may be. Caden spends a lot of time writing RFPs, distributing them, reviewing proposals, and providing you a one-page summary. Okay, as a quick example there. Other times it may be for a contractor, right? So in this case, this client was looking to hire a construction manager for their project. Cadence writes the RFP. We distribute that. We support the district in reviewing proposals and the qualifications that come in. We provide a one-page summary that looks just like this to kind of break down, 100 plus pages per submittal into a one-page critical key takeaway for you. So if that's as far as we get into it, this is the most important information for you to see. And then would support the process to select, interview, negotiate fees and contracts, whatever that looks like. Our role is to support you in managing and executing that. This is just an example, of a construction partner, but we do the same thing for architects. We would do the same thing for any of the layers that we may decide are needed eventually. I mentioned Stuart earlier. Stuart, my brother, that is the data analyst on the team. This is one of the things that he is critical in producing. So if and when a project were to occur, every month there's a payment application that comes in, and that pay app is 30 to 40 pages of all of the breakdown of what's being invoiced for all the work that's been completed. And it's a kind of an AIA contractually bound document that gets submitted that the architect would review, our team would review, and then what we provide is what you see on the left here, which is kind of a dashboard for the district summarizing that pay app and how that pay app reflects where we sit relative to the whole project. And so just as an example, right, as an owner's rep, some of our role is just, supporting the district, providing advice, discussing process, creating strategy. Other times we're creating deliverables like you see here, which help you make informed decisions, give the board a level of confidence on where we sit in the project, help us track, and make sure we are managing that risk that's a part of that project. Accountability, again, as we think about contingencies and how to leverage budgets, we do a lot of spreadsheet work, help you forecast projects, track how, we're tracking from an actual to what was budgeted. We'll create some contingency logs, and these are just a couple visuals to show you what some of those things look like. Projects inherently have soft costs. We have, on an investment, you'll have construction costs and soft costs. Construction costs are bricks and mortar and kind of physical components that go in the building. Soft costs are going to be all of the fees, permitting, equipment, furniture, professional services, the fees that go into getting that work done. All of those things are district responsibility, and inevitably, as your owner's rep, it becomes our responsibility to support you in managing and overseeing those soft costs. So we have a detailed spreadsheet that helps us establish budgets, track those budgets, and then we would closely work with your finance office as you're tracking invoices and paying those over the course of that project. I'd mentioned risk mitigation around time and schedule. We do a lot of schedule work and are tracking. So this is an example of a soft cost schedule where every one of those soft cost budget items ties out to a schedule, and we're tracking where we're at, when we need to get partners on, when we have to write RFPs, and it's our job to support doing that. But just to give you a visual there. Other times these timelines look more visually appealing, and we may create a timeline like this that's less a Gantt chart, more a tool to help us envision how this project will go. And this is something we might use with the school board or with the community members that talk about various components of the project, various phases, when we might do budgeting, when we break ground, when we have a ribbon cutting, right? And kind of visualize the overall process. Responsibility management, again, the district will be responsible for a lot of components that go into a project. We create a responsibility matrix, help you track those items, make sure we're purchasing, we know what's new versus what's existing and to be relocated or moved. Leveraging here, the architectural background of Cadence pretty closely, where we're able to look at a set of architectural drawings and almost do a peer review of them, know very, very closely what's in, what's not. You know, if we're being invoiced for 50% construction documents, we know very closely if in fact we are at 50% construction documents or not. And so we're able to leverage that as a part of the services as well. Again, another just quick example of tracking owner required equipment and a lot of detail into what rooms they go in, who's responsible for specifying them, budgets. These will tie out to actual cut sheets or you know, PDFs to support those pieces. One of the components, you know, that depending on the project will be district direct versus what you're you know, partnering with an architect or a contractor specifically to do. So as a kind of a general statement, some school district projects are one clean project where you would hire an architect and hire a contractor, get that project done, right? Kind of clean. Other districts go with a number of different projects, right? And I know that as you know, Lee, we talked a little bit early on around, you know, some of the immediate needs. Well, it's capital improvement work across the district, right? It's safety and security and critical infrastructure and things that we may need to consider sooner rather than later. That sometimes is not clean for one architect or for one contractor to manage. You would actually want to be strategic and break that apart and phase that in and find the right partners for those various projects. We play a key role in supporting you, creating that strategy, putting together, packaging those projects, and helping your team execute those. And I think, you know, lastly, this role also means lots of other things. And, you know, we talk about engagement. There's a lot of opportunity anytime you go down this path for broader opportunity within, you know, in the classroom with groundbreakings, with ribbon cuttings, with your educational foundation, right? There's going to be a lot of things that tie out that, you know, our team could plug into in support of and around as well. So again, this was, I'm kind of abbreviating some of this just out of respect to your time as well. So just kind of moving through some of this fairly quickly. So I think, you know, I think the key takeaways that I think I'd presented the last time we met, you know, one, really, there's only one Manitowoc, and I don't want to belabor that, but I think pretty key that we're really just taking our experience and helping figure out how to leverage that in support of the district. We see our role as owners rep really as a team captain versus a referee. Okay, so there will be moments where we need to hold folks accountable and have tough conversations, but we'd rather be a part of the team that is helping establish the vision and making sure everybody's rowing in the same direction. So, you know, just kind of pausing there, you know, I know, Lee, the piece that's not in here, because a lot of these components are more project specific as example, because they're kind of the technical side. There's also just the community engagement side, and that's not built into this, but is a part of facilitation, supporting, you know, stakeholders that are going through a process. And I know if you have any questions about that, we can talk about what that looks like as well. So again, I'm going to pause there just because I didn't want to be overly formal in, you know, the slide deck, but I'd be more than happy to circle back to anything or answer any questions folks might have.
Mike, I have a question. Speaking of your advisement in involvement, the district is going to have a number of committees that the superintendent is putting together to talk about various options, moving school district boundaries, moving lines, grade levels, and that kind of stuff. Different, maybe formatting of delivery of services. Are you involved in any of those discussions with these groups, or is that you come in after the district says, "Ooh, we like option A or B or C"? Are you involved in any of those conversations?
Yeah, that's one of my sweet spots. I'm just going to be confident for a moment. That's really where I've done lots and lots and lots of that with districts all over. And that's a lot of that is consensus building. A lot of that's really making sure folks have the opportunity to speak and be heard, and that we are working as a group to build towards what the long-term vision looks like for the district. I have 2 other districts right now that we're doing that exact same thing. And they are 2 districts, one a bit more rural, one a bit more urban, same challenges in terms of declining enrollment, aging infrastructure. Probably need to have some healthy discussion in those cases around maybe consolidation, changing boundaries, changing grade configuration, maybe even. Those are not easy conversations, Keith. I mean, I think those folks have an attachment to their school and to how the district maybe has been for a long time. We have some tools. I have this great exercise with blocks that are cubes that represent classrooms, and we create a map of the community and we move those around to represent how the district could look different. And those folks have the opportunity to kind of like develop their own visions or test out other ideas. And so there are a lot of ways that we can go about that. But my hope would be, yes, I could play certainly a key role in it really depends on the district. In some cases, I'm asked to support the leadership. In other cases, I'm asked to take the lead, and the leadership team follows behind. Whatever that needs to look like, I'm comfortable in either capacity.
Our vision
Thank you.
for
Thank
him with that part, Mr. Shaw, would be, he's said he's being competent, but I mean, I've talked to other superintendents who have utilized Mr. Hacker for the facilitation of those conversations. And all of them come back with rave reviews, not only on his ability to do that, but the results that come out of it. People feeling really good about the process and firm in their recommendations.
Thank you. Tony.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I'm curious, do you guys have any idea, based on what we have ahead of us and what we're trying to accomplish? I know it's an hourly rate, but do we have any estimate of like the amount of hours that it's going to take, or any idea on what that's going to look like? Or is that going to vary from week to week and what we're doing?
Yeah, and Mike may be able to talk to a little bit more about what he believes based on what we've talked about his role might be, especially in the first few months. Because again, it will be a lot of communication, facilitation of community groups, taking a look now that we are headed to referendum on supporting communications and things with that. So Mike kind of understands the vision. Maybe you could give us an estimate in your mind based on your past experience of, what would we really be talking in terms of hours of that type of work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it will differ depending on where we're at in the process. The referendum piece is a critical transitional threshold in terms of effort, right? So if I were to break these into 2 pieces, respectfully, I think there's the committee work that's going to go on for a while, right? Certainly beyond the referendum. Then there's some pre-referendum support, and then supporting the district in those projects if and when that were to pass. And so I think the expectation or recommendation I would have would be that we would set up a bi-weekly meeting on the calendar. And so we have a kind of a fixed structure to how we're doing our planning work. The off week, we may have some work meetings, meaning like on the off week, we may do some referendum planning work or some committee prep work, that kind of a thing. So essentially like a weekly touch of some type. Those committee sessions, I know, Lee, we had kind of talked about a vision of kind of back-to-back days, like once a month, right? So we'd have those sessions as an effort, and then build up in preparation, a little debrief on the back end of those, and then I get back to work and prep for the next one, right? So we kind of like ramp up a little bit and then down a little. The pre-referendum side, I will just note really, again, our team provides strategy support. We could provide community engagement support pre-referendum, meaning if you're going to do listening sessions or go out and give presentations, we could support in some of that messaging work. So we could talk more about that if and when a referendum were to pass, then we could plug in and support at the level needed to execute those projects. And again, that'll completely, be dictated on the delivery model and whatnot. So with all of that said, if needed, I'd be more than happy to sit down and put down like an estimated effort spreadsheet, right? Just kind of, break those hours down a little bit. But I do, in my experience, they do kind of ebb and flow, but my role is completely at the direction of the district, right? So very much, I go at the pace and at the effort that the district directs me to do so.
Yeah.
Matt,
Would you be able to have an estimate of our size of our district of how many hours you would have pre-referendum involved in this cycle? Or have you not even, do you have that information at this point?
I do not. Yeah, we haven't, Lee, we haven't talked about breaking that down at this point. I think I don't want to like fire from the hip, right? So I'd be more than happy to provide that as a quick follow-up if that was needed or desired. I have some districts, and just know, my the hourly rate is just kind of the cleanest way, just because it's hour in, hour out at your direction. But if there needed to be a not to exceed or a retainer or something that the district gave the district a level of comfort with, zero hesitation on my end. So just know if that was needed, I'd be more than happy to work, within the, direction that the district provided there.
Mr. Shaw, I would request that we get a pre-referendum estimate
we can do that.
of hours invested. If you could get that.
We can do that after, yeah. Tony, any more questions?
Yeah, I was just gonna add, what would be helpful for me, just again, looking at this high level, I understand the fee structure, right, hourly, right, there's advantages there, right, we just kind of pay for what we need. But what I don't know, or what I can't see right now is how that compares to the other options that we looked at.
Sure.
I know you guys are making this recommendation.
Yep, I can share a little bit on that.
Yeah.
They're structured very differently. The work that we would have,
Is this something that we need to keep him waiting for? Is this conversation
Yeah,
that?
you're right, 100%.
Yeah.
Can we move on?
Yeah.
Come back to that.
Yeah, and I have no issue. I think I would just echo, I think, Lee, just the point that comparing apples and apples, right? The other vendors you referenced, and I'm not speaking out of turn, they provide services around CISA, a different animal, I'll set that aside. But the other two vendors are essentially design build entities that, provide a service in doing the engineering and then eventually overseeing the construction. Our role would be supporting you and deciding if you even need that as a service. And then if so, making sure you're finding the right partner, negotiating fees, and then managing those fees. So again, when you get into that conversation, just know, two very different service models. I would not be providing the same service as those entities were, if that makes sense. Okay.
Can you tell me the differentiation between your services and CISA 10s then?
Yeah, so CISA 10 and Lee, I may need to lean on you because I don't cross paths with them all that often. They do provide owner's rep services. I know they do provide construction management services at times. So there is probably some overlap between the CISA 10 model. But to be very honest, I have not worked with them, nor I'd say competed against or, interviewed, parallel to them other places. So I'm not all that familiar with their services.
Any other questions? We will do a lot of discussion. Any other closing statements on your part, Mike? Anything that you forgot to tell us that you should? We're not gonna, like I said, you don't need to sit and listen to our discussion. This is.
No, I just want to be sure I was here to be able to answer any questions for you. I don't take for granted these opportunities to present Cadence. There was a reason I started Cadence. I knew and saw firsthand that this was a service that was needed, right? There were gaps in the industry here that other partners either weren't providing or were maybe taken advantage of the opportunity to provide that. I thought, no, there's a different way of doing this, and I can leverage my skill set and experience to maybe provide that. And so the districts I work with, I have feel very fortunate and value the relationships I've built with those districts, and would echo, I think that up against Manitowoc if there was an opportunity to continue to build this relationship and be your partner.
Excellent. And last questions?
Yeah, I guess the only final question I have is, it seems like the hours are gonna kind of ebb and flow a little bit depending on where we're at, but I assume you guys have talked through, just capacity and bandwidth to support what we need, and that won't be an issue?
No. Ken and I have talked, we have money in the budget to support this work for this fiscal year, and obviously, as we move forward, we would be able to forecast out what that would look like for the upcoming budgetary cycle as well.
I'm good. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your time. And
It's a pleasure meeting all of
Lee will get back in touch with you.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I think one of the important things that strikes me is if he can give you some kind of cost estimate for those, that'd be interesting to see. I like that.
It's just a way to try to put some rails on an
Correct.
idea of where, because it's gonna,
The
theoretically.
beauty
if you
is
sign
we
that-
control the rails.
No, but you're not leveraging his experience because he's done school districts in the past. So he has a frame of reference of what that it could possibly,
Sure.
and it could be a $50,000 swing because depending on the services.
Yep.
But we should try to reference
Yeah.
his experience and
I like
past
it.
jobs
Yeah,
to be able to.
I like it.
And then that gives everybody an idea of how much front loading we're doing
Yep.
for the referendum.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
I like what he has to offer. I like the services. I like everything he's presented, but I think that would give us as a board
Yep.
a little bit of guesstimate of what
Sure.
the future costs may entail.
yeah, we can get that.
Okay.
I guess for my seat, I'd also be curious, what I think would be helpful when it goes to the full board, if you could give us any info on the cost estimates
Yeah.
of this guy versus the other options
Sure.
we have, and just to have some visibility on that.
Sure.
Even if you call them company A, B, C, and D
Yeah.
versus.
Yeah, their structure is very different.
Yeah.
They're a percentage based on their services. So if we're talking about a $25 million borrowing referendum and there was $25 million worth of work that they were supporting, they would be pulling out anywhere from 5 to 8% depending on the services and things we're asking them to do.
Yeah.
We feel like the hourly structure of this will definitely not only be able to allow us to control, as Matt pointed out, not get off the rails in terms of, what this is costing us. But it's also not giving away a portion of our borrowing outside of the lines in terms of what we need from them. So to me, in our team, it just seemed like with his experience, and I'll be frank, some of the things that we have to discuss as a community are going to be very difficult conversations to have because people have attachments to their local neighborhood schools, and these are conversations about really the future of the district and what grade alignment will look like and all these different things. Do we rebuild or do we fix or build, right? Like these are the essence of things that he's facilitated in communities across the state. And when I'm in I forget which district it was a district out to the west part of the state. When I was at the superintendent's convention in October, I went to a specific breakout around long-term planning, visioning for your facilities and districts. That particular superintendent referenced his ability to, if you're looking for somebody to help you facilitate a community conversation that can get to consensus, where people are feeling really good about, he's the best in the business. That was the comment. And in talking to, for example, Mr. Erlinson, who's the superintendent in Mishicot, he's working with them right now in terms of reliability, dependability, all of the things that he's promised them to do, he's done. So Corey is someone who I know and trust, and so I take those recommendations and references from folks like that pretty seriously.
Another quick question I had is, assuming obviously, well, first, I agree the messaging is critical, so I like that he's gonna be able to help with that.
Yeah.
Let's play fast forward, assume, the referendum goes, we get the funding that we need, we start doing these projects, we get the 25 million or whatever. Between him and Mike, are we gonna have the capacity to manage all that?
Yeah,
Or
we
do
really
have an
think,
idea what that's gonna look like?
yeah, do you want to, we've talked a little bit about this. Do you want to give some insights
Yeah.
into that, Mike? Yeah.
I'm waiting for the community meetings and all that, see which direction we're gonna go. I mean, maybe it comes out of it, we're gonna build a brand new school. Well, I don't have the capacity for all of that. And neither does Michael, but he can put all of the people, the right people together in that sort of thing. The 25 million that we were looking at for repairs and maintenance and that sort of thing, I can handle a lot of that. Most of it I can handle, but it's just a lot of time and effort to put together. Michael will be able to help that too, but he'll be less involved in that sort of thing.
And one of the things we thought collectively was, yes, the $25 million worth of projects, his involvement in those biweekly check-ins can really be helping us focus in on the very tiniest of details that we're not used to dealing with, like the timelines and the change orders and all the things. He's watching out for our best interest on things we don't have the experience to catch. And ultimately, if somebody's doing that in your corner doing that, it's an investment that gets a return, because sometimes districts that don't invest in someone like this end up paying through the nose in terms of, and Matt can probably talk more about what all that looks like on the back end of things. But he, more of an overseer and like, hey, did you think of this? Are you monitoring this? He's almost like an insurance policy, like risk management, for us to ensure that we're being efficient, that we're dotting I's and crossing T's and making sure that the public investment is really, truly being carried out in the best way.
Well, how do you want to, I think we can go to the board, but I don't think we can go to the board for a motion yet, because I'd like to see what these costs temporarily are going to be. So we can discuss that at the board. We can bring it through out of this committee to go to the board to discuss this and look at these fee structures as a motion, but not as a motion to accept right away. To look at the structure of what we've asked for.
Would you be open to,
Can I
Yeah,
back
sure.
up the conversation?
Sure.
So sorry, that was the next
Okay.
thing, but I wanted to just talk briefly about the past.
Mhm.
Because I think I'm hearing what you're saying, but I want to get it out to the public. With the CISA 10, because we had them as an owner's rep.
yes,
And I want to, so what you're trying to explain is you really like the facilitation of this gentleman and this company that's offered, we just heard this presentation. What was wrong with, what are we gaining or what are we losing from the CISA 10, the relationship that we had as them as our owner's rep? I understand they had the construction management side of it if we needed it as like an à la carte. We're not having that service available with this owner's rep. You're trying to say that the front loading of the facilitation is more beneficial than the construction management of CISA 10? Please correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to,
You're not wrong.
I want to jump into your brain, and then I
Yep.
want you to explain to me
Yep.
and the public why we would be pivoting for the best interest of your vision.
Yep. To me, the way I'm looking at this is exactly what you said. It is the strengths that he brings in terms of the community conversation, the facilitation of that, and getting the board high-quality options that we can count on as recommendations from our staff and public. By far, hands down, general consensus, he's the best at it. The second piece, I think, is for us is, I do my homework. Okay, so I've talked to people who've worked with both. And what I would just tell you is most consistently I get rave reviews from Cadence. So to me, it's about the proven track record and, CISA 10 has done a great job for us setting the table by giving us what we believe and what Michael believes, and actually everybody who came to talk to us took time to look through that study. And the only critical feedback on that study that we got was from one of the companies who said they disagreed with the capacity, the way they calculated and the way they projected capacity in the schools. Otherwise, everyone was saying this is high quality work. And that's the reputation they have, is by doing these studies, they give you what you need to make the next step. That's a strength of CISA 10s. And so my view is use these companies who have strengths at the various different points in your plan to get the best results. So yes, in the pre-planning, I think CISA 10 was probably the best choice. In this part of the plan, and as moving forward to get to our next steps, I really truly believe, and our team did as well, that Cadence would be our best fit for what we need to do.
One of the things that this gentleman has had expertise in is helping the district realize by moving this boundary, it could affect this grade level. By moving this school, it could affect this. We may be able to close down this school because we're moving these boundaries to facilitate over there. Thus, getting rid of a school, or we could reorganize a school, remodel a school, and do other things. That was the impressive
Correct.
part here, that's
He's led those
one of their
conversations.
expertise in helping the community understand, facilitate that.
Correct.
Where the other two, that's not their ballywag.
Correct.
So thank you for that explanation.
Yeah.
So you saying that, and I thank you. Now, Mr. Shaw, I would say that we should not wait if we would like to try to get this referendum passed. We should not wait to sign an owner's rep because it's
So
January.
you don't want to see the.
We can bring it
I'm
as-
saying we would like that next week.
Yeah.
But let's put this to the meeting next
Yeah.
week.
Okay, or you mean the 28th?
The soonest meeting you can, because
28th.
if we want to start getting services
Yeah.
pre-referendum, we should really get on that.
I hear you.
And I will say, I did mention as a timeline that the goal would be to have the 28th.
I know that's what you'd like, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to facilitate, but
I
that's
would
what I
still
think.
like to see that. We can,
We
we
can-
can go ahead, but I'd like to
That
see
should
that.
be there at the
Okay.
meeting.
At the meeting, we'll put that on.
Okay,
We'll
So-
have all that.
Tony.
I just wanted to add how critical that piece of it is, right? Because if we can't get that, then this is really just a giant waste of time for everybody. So, and it almost to me sounds like, I know Keith, you weren't on the board at the time, but we talked to that Nexus group and they seem to have a really extensive package that kind of did everything. And this almost seems like a Nexus Lite, right? Where we can get like the best of what we need on that front end and then just kind of use them as we need them.
Yes.
So, I mean, to me, it makes sense. Like, I think just for a sanity check for the board, if we can get some sort of snapshot of projected economics analysis.
For the
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. We'll go out the next 6 months and I'll have them put together something for us.
Yeah, even that, if we can do that, and then even like, I think what would be even more compelling would be like, here's pre-referendum.
And then here's
Assuming we
when we
get it.
start project.
Yeah, assuming we got the referendum, here's what it would look like with
And
this guy
then,
versus these guys.
and that'll probably take you and I explaining what we vision his role will be, because I don't think it'll be as heavy as it would be, for example, if this were a lot of designing and building of something.
Yeah.
These aren't that.
You want a facilitator. So at
Yeah.
this point, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to bring forward Cadence Services Consulting to the full board for becoming our owner's rep, contingent upon pre-referendum estimate of services needed to facilitate messaging.
Did you hear that?
Hey, it all made sense. It wasn't a word salad.
It was good.
I heard some
Thank you. It was, no.
It was very good.
You think he's blowing smoke? It was good.
I need a second to that motion. Okay. Any discussion?
Well, essentially, we kind of walked through it. I did want to stop and explain that we are leveraging our Mr. Schwartz at this point, because we're asking now that we have the management be done within the district, within our services. And that's a compliment. If we can pull it off, that's going to be awesome. It's going to be hard, but I think that what I heard from the superintendent and from Mr. Mike, in the past is that they needed more facilitating, negotiating, outreach, community resources. And this would provide that service for the district. So I think to be successful, this is what needs to happen if indeed we want to be successful in April.
This is going to be an intimate relationship. And that just to follow up with what you were saying, Matt, it's going to be interesting to go forward and myself working with them. I think we're going to be able to utilize our assets a lot and they're willing to do all of that. And one other thing I wanted to point out that he didn't mention today, but his architectural background, that's the part I like a lot because we can have a lot of these discussions and he already knows room sizes and that sort
Without
of
going to a
thing.
third person.
I was going to ask if he had a stamp. I didn't think it was. Yeah, I don't think, does he?
I don't know for
I
sure.
was going to ask him, but I didn't think it was.
He
was it
was stamped. He was approved.
So I just want to say too, in that when we had Jeff Scholes as the buildings ground, he did a lot of that stuff. We didn't hire a Nexus. We did, and we had building projects. And when we remodeled Lincoln and we did Washington Wilson prior time, he was the Mike at that time. And the good news on that is you stay on top of it. If you turn it over to a Nexus or somebody else, you give up a lot of freedom on what, and they're making decisions for us and not us making decisions. And so I think Mike has the capacity to do that, and I think it'll work out better by having this relationship.
The other thing I'll point out that is sort of, in my view, an add-on with this in support would be at that phase, you saw the tools they have. They're able to take what we're thinking and put it in a graphic in a one-page summary for the board. Because again, you guys are looking at the meat and potatoes of this,
I
like
need that.
where the rubber meets the road. You're not reading a 30-page
I don't
thing.
have those skills.
And-
I've been that for 3 years.
Yeah.
I need, you guys have those skills. I need that. I need to live with this. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing, because we would be able to make decisions or manage, but we'd say, hey, could you make this tool for us to communicate what we just talked about with the board in the most effective manner? And then they draft that up and they have it. They have the prototypes already, they do it all over the place. And I think that will be a help, not only for all of you, but for the community too, to understand. Because then those documents, those public facing documents are that much easier to digest.
Yeah, I think that's key is, taking complex information and just simplifying it as much as you can. So that
Budgeting for dummies.
basically, yeah, I mean, because it's, all of us, right? So it's just, it can be pretty complex. So like the more we can simplify that message, the more the layperson can get it, like, okay, that's what they're doing. And
Okay, we have a motion on the table. It's been seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to adjourn, please. Budget review update? Anything?
That was kind of covered a little bit on.
On the financials.
On the
Okay.
finance, so I went overboard on some of that stuff, so.
Gotcha.
In essence, this is an update.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're in the same process as what we discussed at the meeting 2 days ago.
Gotcha.
Yep, sorry.
No problem.
No worries.
Motion to adjourn? Second? Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.